Welcome to Life Stories, where we bring you powerful and inspiring tales of personal growth, family, and the challenges that shape us. Today's story is about Sarah, a woman who has lived her life in the shadow of her family's expectations. While her sister shines in the spotlight, Sarah quietly hides her true success and achievements. But when she is abandoned by her family in the desert, everything changes. This is a story of revelation, empowerment, and the courage to finally be seen for who you truly are. Subscribe now to start today's journey with us. I've always been the quiet one in the family, the one who didn't quite fit in, who was never the star of the show. You see, while my sister Jessica was always in the spotlight, her grades, her social life, her job, no one ever took a real interest in me. And it's not that I resented her for it. Jessica was bright, charming, always the life of the party. She had this way of drawing everyone to her. With her glowing smile and vibrant energy, people loved her, and that's something you couldn't fault. But for me, growing up felt like standing in the shadows, watching as the world celebrated Jessica while I quietly worked in the background. I was never the one whose achievements were praised. When I got a scholarship to MIT, it was brushed aside as expected. Of course, you were always studying, my parents had said, dismissing my hard work as something trivial. No celebration, no applause. At MIT, while Jessica was at home, living her life, I buried myself in my studies. I didn't care about the usual college experiences. My life revolved around coding, developing apps, solving problems, and that's when it all started, the creation of Life Connect. It wasn't just an app to me, it was the fruit of years of passion, of countless nights spent coding and perfecting something that could change the world. I never told my family. I didn't want their approval based on money or success. What I truly wanted was their recognition as me. I wanted them to see me, not just as the quiet, introverted daughter in the background, but as someone who had achieved something meaningful. But that never came. In their eyes, I was still just Sarah, the boring office worker who didn't measure up to Jessica's standards. I loved my family, I did, and even though they had no idea about Life Connect, I supported them silently in every way I could. My parents' medical bills? Paid. Jessica's tuition loans? Cleared. But none of them knew this. They didn't understand the lengths I'd gone to for them. To them, I was just Sarah, the one who stayed out of the limelight, content to be forgotten. But there was a limit. You see, no matter how much I gave, no matter how much I did, it was never enough to earn their real attention. They loved me, yes, but love can be such a tricky thing, isn't it? They loved me, but they didn't see me. They saw Jessica's smile, her charm, her achievements, and they couldn't see past that. And in that, I found a growing loneliness. As I packed my suitcase that morning, the harsh light from the window seemed to echo my thoughts. I was about to head off to another family trip, another trip where I'd be pushed to the sidelines. Las Vegas, a place full of lights, noise, and excitement, a place that would shine bright for everyone else, but where I would once again fade into the background. I glanced at the family photo on the wall. My parents, smiling, proud, Jessica, beaming, and then there was me, standing at the edge, always with that quiet expression that no one truly understood. Do I really need to go? I muttered to myself. A family vacation. The words were empty. For years, our family conversations had revolved around Jessica. What was she doing? How was she doing? What was next for her? I could practically hear my mother's voice on the other end of the line as she reminded me once again to pack something nice for Jessica's special night. She called me just before I was about to leave. Sarah, are you ready? I'll be there to pick you up in 30 minutes. I didn't say much. Yes, Mom, almost ready. She continued, as expected. Don't forget, Jessica said she found a new store in Las Vegas. Make sure you bring something nice to dress up in. And I could hear her voice shift. A familiar tone of mild reproach. And make sure your wallet is ready. too. You're always so frugal. You should splurge a little for your sister once in a while. It wouldn't hurt. I sighed deeply, looking at my bank balance. I understood what she meant. There was always this expectation. The expectation that I would give and give. And somehow, no matter how much I did, it was never enough. Not in the way Jessica was enough. When I hung up the phone, I opened a hidden cabinet in my study. Inside, neatly arranged, were documents that no one knew about. Stock certificates, real estate deeds, and the most significant of all, Life Connect. The app that had become a global success. A platform used by millions around the world. No one in my family had any idea. They never would. I smiled bitterly as I thought about how they'd continue to see me as nothing more than an ordinary office worker. How they never would recognize me for who I truly was. And still, despite everything, I kept giving. I wasn't ready to change that yet. Though, not yet. We arrived in Las Vegas as expected. The city alive with dazzling lights and the sound of excitement filling the air. It was a world that seemed to belong to everyone but me. As we walked through the casino floor, I couldn't help but feel out of place. Surrounded by people who were there to have fun. To let loose. While I was there simply because it was expected of me. My parents were in their element. My father, George, was sitting at a poker table, carefully studying his hand. My mother, Martha, was playing the slot machines, letting out little excited gasps each time the reels spun. And then there was Jessica, already in her element, confidently placing chips on the roulette table, her face flushed with excitement, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. I watched them all for a while, the noise of the casino buzzing in my ears. Everyone seemed so happy, so full of energy, and there I was, on the sidelines once again. I had never understood the allure of gambling. It seemed like nothing more than a way to lose money. A game of chance where the odds were always stacked against you. But my family didn't see it that way. For them, it was a form of entertainment. A way to feel alive. And that's when I realized how different we truly were. At one point, my mother turned to me. Her voice loud over the noise. "Sarah, why don't you place a bet too? It must be boring just watching." I smiled weakly, shaking my head. "I'm not interested in gambling. Mom, I'm having enough fun just watching." She shrugged, clearly uninterested in my lack of enthusiasm. "You're always like that, so passive about everything." It wasn't long before Jessica's luck ran out. She had been betting heavily, her chips dwindling with each spin of the wheel. When the roulette ball landed on black 17 instead of red, she slammed her hand on the table in frustration. "I was so close," she muttered angrily, kicking her chair. I watched her, a feeling of sympathy tugging at my chest. I knew Jessica had been losing for hours, but she didn't seem to care. She was so caught up in the thrill of the game that it was as if nothing else mattered. "Mom, can you give me some more money?" Jessica asked, walking over to where Martha and George were sitting. "I'm going to win this time. I can feel it." My father frowned, opening his wallet. "I just gave you money a few minutes ago, Jess. Sorry, I don't have any more cash." But Jessica wasn't about to give up. She pouted, trying to convince him. "I just know I'm going to hit it big this time. Please, just a little more." Martha's voice suddenly cut through the tension. "Sarah, you have money, don't you? You're always saving. You must have some to spare." I stared at my mother, surprised. "What are you talking about? I'm not giving her money for gambling." But Martha wasn't listening. She looked at me with that familiar, disappointed gaze. "We're family, Sarah. We help each other out." The words stung. I wasn't against helping. But this wasn't about helping. This was about enabling a cycle that I was growing tired of. I had always helped them, paying for Jessica's tuition, covering medical expenses, but I wasn't going to fund her gambling addiction. I faced Jessica directly. "Haven't you had enough fun for one night? We have all day tomorrow. Why don't we call it a day?" Her face darkened, and she snapped. "What do you know? I'm just about to hit the jackpot." I didn't respond. Instead, I said calmly, "There's no guarantee you'll win. You should play within your means." Jessica raised her voice, her frustration bubbling over. "You're always trying to hold me back. You're just jealous." At that moment, my father intervened, his voice quiet but firm. "Calm down, Both of you. But before I could say anything else, Martha's voice rose, more accusing now. Why can't you just help your sister? Sarah? It's just a few $100s. I felt my anger begin to build. The issue isn't the amount. Mom, it's about responsibility. She needs to learn how to act responsibly. But it was too late. The tension between us had grown too thick, too suffocating. The eyes of those around us began to linger, noticing the argument unfolding in the middle of the casino floor. Let's talk outside, George said, his voice low, clearly embarrassed by the scene we were causing. We left the casino and made our way toward the hotel parking lot. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my frustration simmering beneath the surface. I loved my family, but they just didn't get it. They never had. As we climbed into the car, the silence was heavy. The car rolled away from the flashing lights of the casino and toward the quiet desert highway. I stared out the window, my mind racing. That's when Martha broke the silence. I don't understand your attitude, Sarah. We've always thought of you as part of this family. I turned toward her, my voice quiet but filled with hurt. Really? Jessica has always been the priority, hasn't she? Martha's voice grew louder. That's because she needed it. You've always only thought about yourself. I swallowed my words. This wasn't the time to tell them everything. Not yet. But I was tired of being the afterthought. The one who always gave and never received. I had reached my breaking point. Before I could say anything more, George suddenly pulled the car over to the shoulder of the highway. The vast desert stretched out before us, barren and desolate. Get out, he said coldly. I looked at him in disbelief. What? Dad, this is the middle of nowhere. But George's face was unmoved. You seem like you need some time to think. Get out. I couldn't believe what was happening. But the coldness in my father's eyes told me there was no negotiation. I opened the door, my hands trembling. The gravel crunched beneath my shoes as I stepped out of the car. I turned around to see the headlights of the car fading into the distance. And then, for the first time in my life, I felt completely alone. The desert air was cold against my skin. The silence almost suffocating. I stood there for a long moment, unable to comprehend what had just happened. My family, my own flesh and blood, had abandoned me. They had driven me out here, in the middle of nowhere, without so much as a second thought. My mind raced, my emotions swirling in a mixture of disbelief, anger, and a profound sense of loneliness. But then something inside me shifted. The initial shock began to fade, replaced by a quiet determination. This wasn't the end. No, it was the beginning of something new. I pulled out my phone, my fingers trembling as I scrolled through my contacts. There was no need to put up with this anymore. I had given enough. I had hidden my success for far too long, all in the hopes that my family would one day see me for who I truly was. But that was never going to happen unless I made them see. I tapped a name in my contact list and dialed the number. Jake. It's Sarah Williams, I said when the call connected. I need an Escalade from the Las Vegas branch. Fully equipped. And make sure you bring the special suitcase. His voice was calm, respectful. Of course, Ms. Williams. I'll have it arranged right away. As I waited, the stars above me seemed to shimmer with a newfound clarity. The panic I had felt earlier began to dissipate, replaced by an overwhelming sense of control. This wasn't how I had envisioned my life unfolding. But maybe it was exactly what I needed. Within minutes, the headlights of a black Cadillac Escalade appeared in the distance, cutting through the darkness like a beacon. Jake stepped out of the car, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, his expression respectful as he bowed his head slightly. I apologize for the delay, Ms. Williams, he said as he opened the door for me. No problem, I replied, my voice steady. You're quicker than I expected. Jake opened the back of the Escalade and retrieved a black suitcase. Everything is prepared as instructed. I nodded and accepted the suitcase. I'm going to change. Wait in the car. A few moments later, I returned to the car. My appearance completely transformed. Gone was the cheap, casual outfit I had worn when my family abandoned me. In its place was a perfectly tailored Chanel suit. My hair styled in a sophisticated updo. A subtle yet elegant diamond necklace sparkled at my neck. And my expression, oh, my expression had changed. Gone was the hesitant, uncertain sister. In her place stood a confident woman. A woman who had earned her place in the world. Let's head to the Bellagio, I said softly but with authority. The Escalade glided smoothly toward the iconic hotel. And I sat back, staring out at the darkness outside. My mind flashed back to the years I had spent in the shadows. To the countless hours spent coding. To the app that had changed my life. Life Connect wasn't just an app. It was proof that I was more than just the quiet one. More than just the sister who had been overlooked. I had built something from nothing. And now, it was time to show the world, and my family, exactly what I had achieved. When we arrived at the Bellagio, the doorman greeted me with a respectful nod. Welcome back, Ms. Williams. Please use the VIP entrance as usual. I nodded quietly, but there was no hint of the meek, unnoticed woman I had once been. I walked past the staff, who greeted me with respectful glances, and headed inside. The casino manager, Richard, approached me almost immediately. Good evening, Ms. Williams, he said with a smile. How are you feeling tonight? I smiled back, gently but confidently. Tonight will be special, Richard. I'm looking for my family. Can you help me find them? Of course. How many people are we looking for? My father, mother, and sister. Richard's eyes flickered with recognition. Let me check for you. Within minutes, the staff had located them on the main casino floor. I wasn't surprised to find that they hadn't moved far from their usual spots. My father still at the poker table. My mother at the slot machines. And Jessica, as always, betting with reckless abandon. I stood at the edge of the floor, observing them for a moment. Jessica had just bet her last chip and lost. Her frustration was palpable. She slumped over the roulette table, her face drawn and exhausted. I walked slowly towards them, my heels clicking loudly against the marble floor, drawing the attention of those around me. Some whispered, and I caught snippets of their conversation. Is that Sarah Williams? The founder of Life Connect? But I didn't focus on them. My eyes were fixed on my family. They hadn't seen me yet. As I approached, Jessica raised her voice. It's hopeless. I've lost everything, she said, slamming her hand on the table. It's okay, Jess. We'll think about it tomorrow. My mother said wearily. Jessica's eyes flickered to me. It's Sarah's fault. If she'd just helped me, none of this would have happened. I didn't respond. I simply stood there, my presence a quiet declaration that things were about to change. As I stood there, facing my family, their stunned expressions spoke volumes. They hadn't seen me like this before, confident, composed, and in control. I could feel the weight of the years of silence, of being overlooked, hanging between us. But I was done hiding, done being the shadow. It was time to face the truth. Good evening, Dad, Mom, Jessica, I said calmly, my voice steady and unshakable. The desert experience wasn't exactly what I expected, but it has led me to this moment. George's eyes widened in disbelief. Sarah, what is this? You're the CEO of Life Connect? I nodded, a small smile tugging at my lips. Yes, I am. I've built Life Connect into something that reaches millions of people around the world. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. Jessica's jaw dropped as she pulled out her phone, staring at the Life Connect app icon. Wait, you're the founder of this? She whispered, her voice trembling. I nodded again, the weight of years of unspoken truths settling in. Everything you've taken for granted, from your education to your lifestyle, has been funded by me. I've supported this family in more ways than you ever knew. The silence in the room was deafening. But this time, it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that comes with revelation, with the understanding that things could be different now. I walked up to them, my heart full but steady. It's time for us to be real with each other. I didn't want your money. I wanted to be seen. And now, I think it's time for us to truly start over. For the first time in years, I saw real understanding in their eyes. And in that moment, I knew we were going to be okay. We were finally ready to be a family in the truest sense of the word. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more life-changing stories.